Okay, we're live. Awesome. Got it. Good. Okay, hello everybody. My name's Tiffany. I'm the Tipsy Artist. We are going to be painting a beautiful painting called Home. And I'm going to give you a really big visual on it. This is the one that we'll be doing in our studio. So let me bring this down here. There it is. Awesome. So we'll be doing this on August 28th. So we'd love to see you here if you feel comfortable getting out. If you do not, then we have a painting kit option for you. So let me give you a little bit of a introduction to that in case you haven't seen one of these before. Been showing these off for a while now during the pandemic and everything. But here is the acrylic paint kit, and then you've got all the tools that you need. And then of course this online class will stay up forever. And then we have your traceable. A lot of detail goes into that. I worked really hard on that. And then your transfer paper. And then your canvas. Now I'm going to show you how this works first, and then we'll switch the camera down to like an aerial view so that you can have a really nice close-up look to see how it works throughout the process. But basically what you want to start by doing is it fits very nicely over the surface area, and then you take some tape and you just tape right up here at the top. And you just do the top. You don't do any of the sides or the bottom, and the reason why is because that allows you to lift during the process and check your work so that you know that you've hit every single detail, because there are a lot of details on this painting. So my husband was teasing me last night. He was like, honey, why don't you put some more detail? I said, thank you, I think I will. So yes, yeah, sometimes he's like, honey, less is more. I'm like, well, sometimes more is more. So I apparently went with the philosophy of more is more on this one. But you do want to make sure that it's centered, and it is, top and bottom, side to side, so it's all placed down. And then I do have a pencil in the kit that you can use. Very simple and easy. Pencil definitely shows up over the top, to where you can just basically, just every single place that you see a line, you basically just trace right over the top. So then let me show you a close-up of this. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut this off. And by the way, if you feel like you're a little lost on the transfer process, then please know that I do have a video that is just for the transfer process. So I go into a lot more detail and I talk about how to do it. And so you can certainly go and watch that too. I have that on the website. I'll go ahead and remove that really quick. All right, so now we've got our canvas that's done. Awesome. Okay, and then you can see if you don't do the hardline look, which there's a permanent marker that comes in the kit. And so I have definitely been intentional about coming back over this with the permanent marker, especially with the letters. To me, that's just so much easier. It's very easy for beginners to go ahead and get all of your lettering done. Plus, it will bleed through the paint nicely, and then that way you won't lose all of your tracing. One other thing I'll say that's super important is a lot of my students that have been doing this with me for a long time, they will go ahead and just do a wash of their background color over the entire surface area, and then they'll let it completely set up and dry. And then when it is absolutely dry to the touch everywhere, then they will go ahead and do the transfer process over the top. That is actually the easiest and best way. I do it this way just for the sake of timing, and when I teach, I need to be able to be very fluid through the process and not stop and rest and allow for dry time, which I don't have during a live. So that's why I do mine first. All right, so here we go. But here is the difference between the two. So you can see this is what the graphite looks like. It's a much softer line, and a lot of people will prefer this, especially if you've done your background to begin with, and that will be really nice. And then I still say that doing your lettering with the black permanent marker is super helpful, because sometimes those are very small areas, and they definitely are much easier to handle, especially if you use separate from a shaky hand or anything like that. This is much easier to have precision with. So that's there for you in the kit. So I'm going to go ahead and place this off to the side here. Now this is all ready to go. And you can see, I'm going to show you one other thing here too. So I had a little bit of a rubbing here with the graphite that happened when I was doing this. And honestly, this is just shiplap that's happening behind her. That's the desired effect, which is like an old weathered wood. So you don't have to worry about some of these imperfections. That's actually going to help your shiplap. That's going to make it look very lovely. So all good, and we're ready to paint. So this is very exciting, and thank you so much for being here with me today. And yeah, I've got my Facebook up on live, so I know I'm going, so that's awesome. However, I'm still not able to see the comments over there as we're going. So I promise I come back in right after I'm done teaching. I always respond to everybody, so I still love it if you say hello to me. I'm so happy to see y'all, and I'll be sure to answer any questions or say hi when I'm done teaching. So yay. All right, so again, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to go ahead and move the camera now. We're going to take it to a different direction so you have a really nice look here. So pardon me as I move this, and we're going to get there. And it may take me a minute, but all right. So that is awesome. Let's get a few more little candles, get a little ambience going. I care about stuff like that, y'all. Let's pull this up just a little bit. All right. Okay, so that's gonna, let's just see. Let's just tweak this maybe just a teeny bit more. Okay, good deal. All right, so we're ready. Now let's talk about our setup here. So I've got all my brushes, paper towels, rags if you like that. This is going to be my little paint plate here. And then we also have a bucket of water, so all good to go there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put on my little peepers here, and then we're going to get ready to paint. All right, so we're going to take this off. And we will start with our, I call this my mama brush. So I've got my little family here. So I've got Mama, and then I have Little Buddy, and then Little Bit. All right, and then I went ahead and got a little bit of a head start over here. I laid out some titanium white, and I knew I'd be using a lot of that bright primary yellow, so I did go ahead and put some of that out as well. Okay, and then I need to go ahead and for this first stage here, I want to mix up like a taupe color. So it's a little like a hint of gray and almost like a bit of khaki maybe. So we're going to start with some gray. So I'm going to take some Mars Black here. And mine, I use all my used paints, so please know that you will have a brand new, very full tube of Mars Black. In fact, it looks more like that. Mine are a little bit more loved. I try to use mine up. So I'm going to do a little bit of that Mars Black over here to the side. And let's see. Here is Mama. Let's go ahead and grab a big dollop of the white, a little tiny touch of the black. That's going to give me a really pretty light gray. Let's go ahead and bring that in a little bit here. So we have that beautiful light gray, lots of white on this. Now if you add just a teeny tiny amount of that bright primary yellow, that's going to go ahead and bring in a little bit of warmth to that, like a creamy texture to it, creamy tone, a lot more white. And that's getting there. I just want a little bit of a warmer tone to it. So let's add a little bit more of that yellow and a little bit more white. All right, good. So I've got a little hint of cream and a little hint of gray, so that's wonderful. And so I'm going to go ahead and start to paint this over the surface area and just sweep that back and forth. Nice fluid horizontal strokes back here. You see how that permanent marker is just bleeding right through? That's actually wonderful. I'm going to grab a little bit of water and go ahead and take this back and forth. And also adding a little bit of water to this helps make it a bit more translucent. So that also makes it really easy to see all the work that we've done here underneath. And I try to do firm pressure all the way across. I don't really lift off on the pressure until I'm completely off the surface area here. And by that I mean I start from pressure here, don't lift off until you actually are off the canvas. So I think sometimes beginners will do short choppy strokes like this, and then they end up having to kind of contend with that. I'm not necessarily too thrilled with the brush strokes that are left that are choppy. So I say keep it fluid and smooth, at least for this particular type of style of work here. It tends to be a little bit more popular. And again, just keep taking that all the way across. And if you want, hints more of gray, or just to kind of give it a bit more variety, then of course you can kind of push some of that in, do light little drags across here from the edges, but also keep your hand really light and keep that brush more over to the side, parallel to the canvas. Pull in a little bit more of those golden tones on that. I'm running out of paint, so I'm going to mix up a little bit more. So I'm coming in with more gray, more white. And sometimes this looks like it's got heavier coverage than it really does. As it dries, it will allow a lot more to just really peek through. I'm going to go ahead and hit it with a little bit of water though, just in case, so that I make sure that I can still see everything where I have placement here of my design. And that is looking better. And there it is, looking beautiful. So that is our background. All right. Well done. And we're going to go ahead and, I just rinsed out, but let's go ahead and talk about that a little bit too. So if you've never painted before and you want to rinse out your brush, what you want to do is firm pressure, round and round and round. That helps release that paint, and then check your brush here and do a quick little drag here on the side of the bucket. And then let's also make sure and clean on our rag or paper towels. Either one works great. It's important to wash those brushes every time because acrylic paint does set up and dry very quickly. And so it will turn your brushes into sticks very quickly instead of brushes, so it's super important. If you don't have a chance to get to it and you're in a hurry, don't leave them just sitting out or they will be ruined by the time you get back. So always just leave them in the water at the very least. I always tell people to do that for sure. Okay, so let's see here. What shall we do next? Let's go ahead and we're going to give this a little bit of dry time, and I'm going to start to work on my little roses here. So I'm going to come in with my little bit brush, And we're going to be working with a little bit of some beautiful pink. So I'm going to use my primary magenta. My palette's getting super busy. It's about time to do one of those really fun paint peels. But for right now, it's looking pretty interesting. All right, so I've got my primary magenta here, and I'm going to go ahead and pick up a little bit of white here and mix that in with that. Let's make it a little bit lighter. Okay, it's super pretty. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and work into my little rose here. And I'm basically just doing what looks like shapes of like little parentheses. And I use my trace as more of a reference on there, and then I just kind of free fall it on here, but you can certainly be more meticulous and just follow exactly what's there if you want. So again, feels like little tiny parentheses. Let's grab a little bit more white, blend in with our primary magenta. And hello again to everybody out there joining me today. I'm so happy y'all are here. Hope y'all are having a beautiful day. Staying cool indoors. This is a good project to do inside. But do you feel that, how it just feels like, it's almost like making a little comma or like a parentheses, either one. And I basically take it around in like a little circular motion there. All right, so that's a beautiful start on that. But they do kind of look like little lumpy circles at this point. So I'm gonna go ahead and let's rinse out again. And then let's go ahead and take just some pure white now. And we're going to use a much lighter hand, and it's the same stroke. Again, just kind of feels like little commas. Take those around in a circular motion. You can already start to see how this beautiful rose will evolve. Again, just like little commas or little parentheses. All right, wonderful. So that's a beautiful head start there. Now we're going to come in with a bit of contrast. So I'm going to rinse out again, dry off. Now let's go into that darkest shade, and that is our primary magenta. And I want that little tiny spot right in the center of the rose. There's a little bit of a shadow there, so I use the primary magenta. That's that darkest shade there that we used to mix that up with. Again, it feels like a little comma. I'm going to do a few more of these. So I don't put as much of the darker shadow in. Again, it's just a little bit of an echo of what's already happening, but it is a little bit of that shadow. So there's already like a nice soft blend a little bit with that white that's already happening there. And again, I kind of wiggle the brush a little bit and then kind of lightly drag it into that white so it gives me that nice soft blend. But again, that little wiggle really helps too. So we don't want perfection on this. The petals are very organic and curvy, so nothing too precise. All right, let's go ahead and rinse out again. Those are looking beautiful. And then let's go ahead and start to work into our beautiful sunflower. And you can see how this is already starting to, really dry nicely, set up nicely to dry to the touch. But I have my, what do we got here? We've got primary yellow. And then let's go ahead and do a little touch of cadmium yellow. And then of course we have our white nearby. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and push into that primary yellow, cadmium yellow. Nice mix of those, nice and warm. A little bit of white. That just really helps add a little bit more of an opaque look to it, nicer coverage over the surface area. And we're going to go ahead and paint this into every petal. And again, thank you for joining me here today. I pray you're having a peaceful day, feeling thoughts of overcoming, triumph, blessing, prosperity. I try to say all those things more and more out loud. And then I say, I'm so thankful that they're coming. Yay! Got to pay attention to the self-talk. Make sure it's a good talk. Positive talk. I've been talking a lot about that with all my girlfriends. My husband doesn't really understand. I don't know if he represents a general feeling of all men, but it seems like a lot of men I talk to don't really deal that much with self-chatter, but all my girlfriends do. And so we have to be very intentional about what that voice is and what we're listening to and what we say out loud. So try to keep it really, really positive. Oops, I got a little... Oh, I think that's a little piece of... Yes. Oh, wow, interesting. It's like I need tweezers there or something. It might be time to clean up my palette. I think I picked up a little something there. Alright, so let's go over that again. And just kind of take that out to a nice fine point there. So, and just as a recap too, I am touching into a little bit of that cadmium yellow with the primary yellow. And I like to just make sure that that cadmium yellow kind of comes in on the curve of the petal. And you'll notice too that my hold on the brush is really just like you'd hold a pencil, pretty easy hold. And I start from the center and then I just kind of pull out to that nice fine point and then lift off with a light hand. Alright, so we've got a really nice foundation here. This is going to be lovely. I just added a little bit more white to my yellow. So I'm coming in with some more white highlights. Those are really nice. Starting at the center, making those a bit more bold. So I'm grabbing a little bit more on the surface here and just doing, you know, short little strokes and just pulling out with a light hand. All right. It's looking gorgeous already. There's that. Do a little twist. Now let's go back into more of our cadmium. And we'll work in some of those highlights as well. So I'm going to let this set up and dry for just a little bit, because as I'm pulling in these darker colors, I've got a little fly here that's come to visit me. Isn't he friendly? The flies are so friendly this year. Normally we love friendly, but not so much with the flies. All right, so I'm going to let this set up and dry a little bit, because as I continue to try to put in a different accent color, I find that it is just kind of basically lifting off what I just did. So we'll give that a little bit of setup time there. Okay, so now we have some beautiful green leaves that we can work on. So let's do that. We have some Viridian. Love this color. It is very much like a beautiful teal. And then we have a Cadmium Green. And then we have a bright yellow green. It's very exciting. How gorgeous is that? It's going to be amazing. Okay, so again, little bit brush. Let's go ahead and push into that Viridian, and then the Cadmium Green, and then the bright yellow green. Loving that color. Very nice. I always love a hint of teal or turquoise in my green. I just think it's so lovely. All right, let's do a little twist, and then that way we get a nice fine point again. All right, so I know these are my little leaves. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of take a soft, gentle curve around that shape. Pull that out to a nice fine point. And if you're struggling with it being, you know, delicate enough, if you will, towards the end, sometimes a little bit of water helps. That will thin that out. Do that twist too into the paint. That makes up for a very nice fine point. And then that can give you a really tiny thin line to work with. A little bit more water. Fill that in. Gorgeous leaves. Lovely, lovely. All right, now we're going to continue on and do more of these here. All right, so we have a little leaf there, and actually I have my black to do in here, so I may wait and do that detail work a little bit later. All right, let's get a little bit more of this white and our Viridian. You know what, let's grab a little bit of blue too. Okay, so let's take our primary cyan blue. I want a bit more of a turquoise feeling here, so I did just a super tiny little dime size amount there. Actually, you can just do really more of a pea size amount. Very tiny amount is all that's needed. Let's grab some more white. I need some more white. All right, so we have our titanium white. more light. Work that in. More Viridian, that blue. There it is. That's becoming a bit more of that turquoise that we want. Way to go. Do a little twist in there. That gives you that nice fine point again. It's a beautiful shade of turquoise there. Another one there. And the shape on these little feathers these are actually more of the feathers in here, and it's very much like making a little parentheses, another little parentheses, and then connect back down. So I'm going to wait on these little tiny ones because we still have our letters to do, and I want those leaves to be popping out over the top there. Gorgeous, wonderful. Okay, now let's go ahead and do more of the, we can do pink or purple. Let's go ahead and go back in with more of a pink color. So this is our primary magenta again, and I still have, I think, enough there, and a little bit of that white. Here's a little feather. And let's do another little feather here. We're just getting in that solid background color over the top. We'll work in more details here in a moment. In the basic shape here. It's really lovely, and you know what, just for fun, let's go ahead and do a little tiny hint of violet. So do I have any of that out? Yes, I do. Here is violet. Just a little pea size of that, and let's do a little touch of white. And I want this little feather to be violet. Okay, now you can also do some pattern with that too. So I've got my, and again, you can be creative and do your own unique colors here for your feathers. So if you're not a big fan of these super brights, I mean, you could do browns and more neutrals if you want. So I'm doing almost like a little chevron pattern here. It's just basically a little triangle almost. It's like the top part of it. Go up and then back down. Up and down. And then maybe just a little, oops, I got a little bit of a water around there. So let's do this. Paper towel. Let's just quickly blot that really quick. That's how you can quickly lift off a mistake. I mean, oops, I don't ever say that. A possibility. We don't make mistakes around here. We only have possibilities. All right, let's go back to that purple. A lot less water here, and I'm just going to do a little horizontal stroke all the way across. It's very pretty. All right, now let's mix up some brown. All right, so we've got some cadmium orange. A dime size amount of that. And then we have some black over here to the side. Let's see, I want my little buddy brush now. So here is little buddy, little 1/4 inch flat tack-on brush. Let's grab a little touch of that black, very little. There's not that much needed. Push that in with that orange, it's going to go right to brown. Let's go ahead and start to push that into that little circular shape. Again, a little bit of that Mars black with the cadmium orange. That makes our brown. Just a nice thick coat of that to start with. Let's go ahead and turn that brush over to the side. And there is the center of our sunflower. Now we can also do a little Pounce Effect there. So I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit of the bright primary yellow, and I'm going to just barely kind of tap, tap, tap. And basically just a circular shape all the way around here. And the brown's still wet, so you're going to get like a nice soft blend with this as you tap it out. So it's kind of tapping on the side of the brush. And you just kind of keep tapping on that until it does become a little bit more subtle. So it's textural, it's fun. You still see that remnant of the circle, but see now how it's very softly blended. And so that gives you that fun little pattern that goes into the center of our sunflower. All right, next up will be to go ahead and work in our lettering. So at this point, I do want to go ahead and get that in because I have a lot of this green and detail work that's going to come in over the top here. So let's go ahead and get started on that. Now, I will tell you, you can either do it with permanent marker, which is definitely much easier for beginners, or you can paint it on. So I'm going to show you a little bit of both, but basically, and you can also use a ruler with this too if you want. Sometimes I think that really helps, but you don't want the permanent marker to ever touch into the wet paint. I still have wet paint there, and sometimes also if you want more of a painted look, you can just do your outside edge. That'll keep that really tight. A lot more perfect, if you will, and then you can paint into the center. And I won't re-emphasize my shiplap because I actually want that to be a bit more muted and subtle. Again, I'm very careful to not touch any of the wet paint. That's very tiny. Okay, I'm going to turn this upside down for just a moment, just because it'll be easier for me to reach and get to these details here without putting my hand over the top of the painting and possibly disrupting some of my hard work that I put into those details, because some of the paint is still kind of wet, so we want to be careful with that. So of course you're welcome to always move the canvas as needed. Alright, that's a great start. Love that. Okay. So let's go ahead and stop with that, and let's go back in. We'll be working back in with Little Buddy and Little Bit, and just our Mars black paint. I'll give you a visual on that here too. There it is. I'll do as much as I can. There's a little bit of water there too to help extend that out, but I'll do as much as I can with my Little Buddy. Just easier to get into those larger areas. And then when it gets to be pretty tiny, then I'll switch back to Little Bit. And here's what's great about Little Buddy. It can be used on the flat side of the brush to get a larger area, and it can also be held like a pencil and get a really nice thin line. Just barely touch on the line edge there. Let's grab a little bit of water, help kind of make that black paint a bit more fluid and easier to move. And I'm going to go ahead and work back over that with the green. So I'm going to go ahead and just fill this all in. Alright, so now I've done about as much as I can do with Little Buddy. So I'm going to go ahead and give Little Buddy a break. Let's come back in with Little Bit. A little touch of water. Work into that Mars black again. Give it a little spin for a nice fine point, and then we'll work into these smaller areas here. Take it around those shapes. And a little bit works perfectly in here. It can definitely go around all these tiny little areas. I think I've got all those done. Let's go ahead and come around this just in case. There. Using my pinky as just a little bit of a brace to help stabilize my hand while I get into these smaller areas here. That's another little helpful tip. Just make sure you do not put your pinky down into any wet surface area. Little parentheses around that feather there. Alright, I think we have all of that done. It's looking so gorgeous. Love it. Okay, now let's go back into that green. Let's play with that a little bit more. So I've got my little bit brush here. It's nice and clean. And let's grab a little bit of white, green, spin it in there in the Viridian. Let's definitely go to where it is dry. So let's take it in through here. We have just a little stem. And then off to each side, it's just like a little touch. And the stroke is like a little diagonal. I'm going to pull back towards the stem. Wonderful. And again, just kind of lay it over to the side. Very pretty. Cute little leaves. And these are more like just tiny little lines that come out from the center. And a little stem. Wonderful. We'll keep this going up through here. Little stem. And we have this one that comes out across. So that has to be on top of the black. Alright, now I'm going to do some more accents over these other sections of the greens. I'm going to come in with a little bit of that light bright green. And just kind of push that over the top there. We'll push and then pull. And then I want little highlights of that bright yellow green in other little spots. So I'm going to go ahead and just do a few more little accents of this. These are going to come out just all around my little rows here. Right, very pretty. All right, now let's take some more of that brown. So I've got my little bit brush again. Let's add a little bit of this black to the orange. Make some more brown. A little bit more water. A little more black. Let's make it a little bit darker. Really twist that out to get a nice fine point. And then let's go ahead and take a center line through here. And then little diagonal lines back to the center. Thanks for those real cute little feathers. Now I want to thin this out again, very delicate line now. Tap it out, make sure I don't get any water runs. Okay, let's see what else. Let's do a few more over here. All right, so now we're looking really great on the details, and I want to go ahead and come back in and work on our sunflower just a little bit more and add some details from the center and that come in around our little petals here too. So I've got a little bit of that brown. I've got that orange too for fun, but I'm going to start from the center here and just kind of pull out little tiny details on the tops of the petals. Just little tiny dashes. And we want this brown to be really light, so I added a lot of water to it to make it really translucent. And then I'm going to come in and take it just very gently around the petals. All right, so now we have some really pretty detail there. It's looking really good. I'm going to take this clean dry brush. That line's a little bit heavier. I'm going to blot that just a little bit. All right, so I'm loving that. I'm going to come with a little bit of this brown around the leaves. Wonderful. Okay, now I'm looking to make sure, do I have anything else I need to do? So we still need to work on our shiplap just a little bit. So I'm going to come in with a little bit more of our black and our dark brown. And actually, I'm going to switch over to Little Buddy because I want that nice thin line. So we're going to come in with Little Buddy. Make sure our line is thin, and it is. And we're just going to lightly kind of drag this across. And remember, this is old shiplap, so it can be definitely imperfect. We want a little bit of that old weathered wood. And as I go back into the brown, I do a firm press back and forth just to make sure that my line edge stays very thin and that my brush doesn't get too cluttered up with paint. That is gorgeous. I'm going to go ahead and rinse out, dry off. Now you can also make some fun little nail holes on here too, which is nice. So I use a little trick. I use the end of the brush, and I do want to make sure that I've got enough to go into here. I want some paint mixed up. So let's go ahead and let's mix up a little bit more. Nice pea size amount of black, nice pea size amount of the orange. Just mix that all up over here. Need to have plenty to work into. Go ahead and scrape off all the excess because we're actually using this side of the brush. So I'm going to dip into that. See how it's right there on the edge there? There's a nice dot of it. And I'm going to do a couple of dots right there. Just kind of looks like fun little nail holes. And right here. I like to keep them in little pairs like this. It's kind of fun. Just do a firm press. If you don't quite get it the first time, you can always come back and re-dot it to get a better circle. Like those were a bit weird. I don't know why. There. Just firm press it again. And then right here. Oh, that's better. Okay. Awesome. It's looking good. Let's do a few more down here. Alright, that is looking awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and put this into my water. And I think we are done with our beautiful painting. Checking to make sure we have all of our details in. But yes, that looks super, super lovely. Very beautiful. And we have switched over to the canvas panels on our kits. They're really awesome because you can put this right into a frame. It fits into any standard frame. So it just makes it a lot easier for you. All right. And they ship better too. So awesome. All right. So there we go. And thank y'all so much for joining me here today and watching our lovely painting process. And again, everything you need for this kit is on our website, tipsyartist.com. And if you want to paint this with me in the studio, we'll be doing this August 28th, Saturday at the studio too. So we'd love to see y'all here. And we'll be doing a big 16 by 20 here in studio too. So check that out, tipsyartist.com. And thank you again so very, very much. And we look forward to seeing y'all soon. Toodles.